This week, Joe Biden is back in the news. Remember him? Well, the not yet official Democratic Party candidate for the presidency chose his vice presidential running mate, Senator Kamala Harris of California. And next week, they will be in the news as well when the Democratic National Convention is held in order to make those selections of nominees official. You'll be able to stream a lot of speeches from that convention from named Democrats like Michelle and Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and a lot of others. Search for it online for Democratic National Convention. You can find out which speakers are speaking when, so you know who you don't miss who you want to see, and you can skip the ones you don't. But today we have one of the delegates to the Democratic National Convention who will be choosing officially those candidates as their nominees. Jim Cupples is a delegate from Oregon. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Alan. Good afternoon.
What I would like to walk the viewers through, first of all, is exactly how you got to be a delegate to the Democratic National Convention and what a delegate is supposed to do.
Sure. So I got to be a delegate to the convention by running an election, and the election that I was eligible for was just for people who are voting for Bernie Sanders. So you declare who you're supporting in the presidential election, and if your candidate gets over a certain threshold of votes, you're allotted a certain amount of delegates for that candidate. And I had declared being a voter for Bernie Sanders, and he was apportioned, I forgot the amount. I want to say somewhere around 24 or so delegates to the National Convention. And then after it's figured out how many delegates are, that candidate gets, you run for an election within your party, the Democratic Party, among the people who have been pledged to Bernie Sanders. And I ran for the CD4, Congressional District 4 spot.
Wayne County and part of Douglas County.
Yeah, big, really big district.
Yeah, geographically right? Big.
Yeah. So yeah, you run for it. It's I guess it would be an intra-party election, and then even a circle within that where it's specifically for the people who have pledged their vote for Bernie Sanders. And there is an amount that's given to each congressional district according on how many people voted for Bernie Sanders within that district, and then as well a few at-large delegates and also alternative delegates. Now there's also, and you don't really understand this, I think, until you run for a delegate position, there's a certain amount of people from communities that they want represented. So one of them was for veterans, military veterans, and I am a military veteran. So that was one of the categories applicable for me for running. So they
give you a boost in the choice process?
Yeah, well, they have to hit certain, they're targeting certain benchmarks. They want so many people of color, they want so many LGBTQ delegates, they want so many Native American delegates, and so many, of course, gender for male and women delegates.
And that's for the county delegates as a whole. That's not for each candidate's pledged delegates that they have to balance it off.
Yes, that's for the congressional districts balance.
And let me interrupt you one more time, because I heard you say there's about 24 Bernie delegates. That's from the state to the national convention?
That is correct.
So nationally, there's over 1,000 delegates pledged to Bernie.
Yeah, I think it would hit that.
Some 2,600 for Biden, something like that.
Yeah. I think the number here in Oregon is somewhere around 70 or so. I believe over 70 for Biden and around 24 for Bernie. And across the country, yeah, it's well over 1,000 for Bernie, but I'm not exactly sure what the amount is. So for just about every state, most states are sending Bernie delegates to the convention. So you put your name forward, and there's a period where you get a chance to communicate via email. Now, I've only run in this to be a delegate for this convention in 2020. So I'm not exactly sure what occurred in 2016, but due to coronavirus, all of your outreach is pretty much digital. So you're given an email that will go out to all the people that are eligible to vote for you, which would be people that had pledged their vote for Bernie Sanders, and you get to pitch yourself and say, for me, I said, hey, my name is Jim Cupples. I live in Springfield. I am a longtime Bernie Sanders supporter. I've worked for a political software company. I co-founded a site to help people get elected. Other things like that you speak about your background, and then those votes are tabulated. And like I said, there's certain benchmarks to be hit as far as representation from specific groups, and that's how you become a delegate.
So you had to go through an election process, and then they had to vet all the elected delegates to balance them for different criteria, and then those are the ones that get to participate in the national convention. In this case, there's also some going to the state convention and other things, but essentially this is a step in the process of getting people to the national convention, which is not going to be actually physically getting them anywhere. One more question I wanted to ask you about the selection process, which was, I remember the Sanders campaign was also doing some vetting of the delegates, if I remember. Did you encounter that? Were they looking at you and saying, what's your position on this or that? How do you experience that?
No, I was not confronted by them, and that is something that occurred. And there were some good delegates from the 2016 convention that I think were labeled as being too disruptive or nonconformist. It's really too bad. I'll just go on my opinion, because I don't think I had not heard of that occurring beforehand for other delegate selections. But yeah, there were people, and I know them personally, who were contacted and in essence saying, like, you're not welcome as a delegate even if you get elected.
So they already knew who they were. They didn't have,
they
didn't have to ask you questions. They were just looking for them.
Yeah, I guess they made a short list, and that list was people that they considered disruptive or not going along with the party. And I think it's too bad. I mean, we're a Big Tent party, or at least supposed to be, and that comes down to ideas. So to me, it was a negative. I think everyone should have been able to run for that. And the decision on who's disruptive and who's not just seems very arbitrary.
Obviously, one of the things you do is vote on who's going to be the candidates as president and vice president. No suspense there. We all know who those both are.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier to me you may have some thoughts about Kamala Harris as the vice presidential candidate. How did that hit you? Was it?
Well, I wasn't surprised, yet I also had other people in mind that I would have liked to seen selected. Karen Bass from California, or Bass, is the person that I would have most liked to have seen. I think she is a true progressive and represents that part of the Democratic Party really well. And I'm not in, and have any interest in bashing Kamala Harris. I think she's had some really good points to her up to this point political career, and then there are some things that I'm not thrilled about in her political career. But my position is, hey, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat for practically all my life, since 1992 when I turned 18. So I've been with the party for a long time. And I'd like to see them win. I'd like to see Trump out of office, and that means Joe Biden being elected along with Kamala Harris. So I'm going to certainly support them. Or I guess Nina Turner would have been my dream pick. But Karen Bass also was someone that was being vetted by the campaign and I think would have done a good job, and she wasn't selected. So at this stage, I think as Democrats, wherever you fall in the party, as far as who you would have wanted to be the vice president, it's we're on. You've got to move on. You can't like hang around the primary with hurt feelings. If you're committed to the party, I believe in the party, and I also believe in reforming the party very strongly. Other allies in that are people like Larry Taylor and Valdez Bravo and Angelique Orman. So we're Democrats, and we believe in reforming the party and making it more progressive and more fair. And we're going to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and then put the heat on them so that so that we, as best as possible, have our ideas as progressives, having a voice and also action from the president's office.
So that brings us to another topic, which is that your role is not only to officially confirm the president and vice president as your candidates, but to do other things like vote on the platform. And I don't know what else. Are you on particular committees or caucuses? Obviously, you're in the Oregon Delegates caucus and
Yeah.
the Bernie Sanders caucus.
Yep.
Other caucuses, or what else
No,
do you do?
there's no other caucuses that I'm on. There's one Bernie candidate on the Rules Committee, and I don't know her very well. She's from up in Portland, but she had experience with the Bernie Sanders campaign. So the other things that we do, though, is we get to vote on the platform, the Democratic Party's platform for the convention, and we also are voting on a resolution that passed by the DNC committee and then goes out to the body, all the delegates. And I can tell you how I voted on those. I voted yes on the resolution, and there were two real big parts to that resolution that had already passed by the DNC committee, and those parts were, one of them was limiting the role of superdelegates, of course, in the first round of voting. And then the other one was encouraging states that are having caucuses to have primaries instead. So I wasn't in favor of pushing states towards using primaries instead of caucuses. I think that should be up to the states. There's a lot of loose language in that resolution and I don't know how it's going to be enacted. Literally, the term is encouraging states that are using caucuses to use primaries instead.
So I take it from how you're saying this that did pass.
It did, yeah, that passed. So I voted for that resolution, and if I would have had my ultimate pick, it wouldn't have been a combination. I certainly wanted superdelegates to be limited, but I'm also in favor of caucuses being the choice for those people specifically in that state, and they should choose how they want to organize. And I'm not particularly a big fan of caucuses. I could kind of give or take them, but I also think it's an overreach from the Democratic National Convention to try to dictate what states should do.
Who was behind that? What was the impetus?
I think that the push on that, to be frank, was from more of centrist Democrats. I think in caucuses, it's proven to show that you usually, a lot of times you'll have progressives or, the kind of Bernie Sanders type candidates, the underdogs, or the ones that aren't really promoted from Washington, D.C. They usually do better in caucuses for a wide variety of reasons. And so I think that's where that energy was coming from, to move it away from caucuses and to primaries. And we'll see how all that's going to be interpreted. Like I said,
on the other side, the superdelegate proposal might work in the opposite direction. It empowers ordinary voters over the people already in office and the funders and the loyalists and all that.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't sure what the superdelegates are, but they're mostly elected officials and people that have close ties to them, party officials.
Yep.
This year, they're not going to have much of a role at all because the president's going to be chosen on the first ballot. He's already got the votes.
Yeah, exactly. It would be significant under certain scenarios, because the superdelegates played a big role in 2016, where it was almost like a soft power role. A lot of the times when they would total up the delegate race between Bernie and Hillary, they would kind of lump in the superdelegate numbers onto Hillary's amount. So, of course, if we had this rule back then, that wouldn't really be applicable because they were lumping them in on her amount because it was the first ballot threshold that I think they were trying to make the case that was insurmountable for Bernie Sanders to overcome. Yeah, I'm happy to support the resolution, and you don't always get everything you want, but I certainly want the limitation of superdelegates as much as possible. I mean, I'm all for just completely removing that role. I think it's pretty undemocratic to have superdelegates.
Was that vote already taken?
Well, we all voted during the past week to submit our ballots to the to the Democratic National Convention on how we feel about that. So we don't know.
A secret ballot process? Is that what it was?
Yeah. It's a digital ballot, and you get a PDF, and then you can fill it out digitally or print it and then rescan it. I think there was an option for submitting a paper copy, but I know that most of us in the Bernie Sanders delegates filled out the PDF and scanned it back to them. And I know that because we do a bit of digital caucusing on our own.
So we're able to caucus pretty easily, Zoom and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank gosh for Zoom. We use Zoom, and we get together every week for a weekly Zoom call where we talk about these things and try to, we're definitely in the minority, so solidarity on positions is really important. So we try to discuss amongst ourselves what we'll be backing and what we won't be backing. So that resolution that we're talking about, limiting superdelegates, encouraging primaries instead of caucuses, is something that us as the Bernie delegates are for passing. And I know that's the case in Oregon. I know it's the case in Washington, California, same thing. So we caucus among ourselves as Democrats and Bernie delegates in Oregon, but we also have friends in other states that are also Bernie delegates, so we talk to them as well. And there's a good friend of mine named John Culver up in Washington, and I knew through him that they were taking the same position on the resolution. They weren't thrilled with it, but they were voting for it because it limits the superdelegates. That resolution came from the Unity Committee, or I think it was called the Unity Committee, that after the 2016 presidential race, they got a bunch of Bernie and Hillary Clinton supporters and looked at a bunch of ways that they could heal the rift. And one of the ways was this resolution. There were a lot of other things on the table that unfortunately didn't make it all the way through, but this was one of those steps.
So you also are going to be voting on the platform. Do you vote as a whole or plank by plank, or how does that go?
You vote as a whole. And what we discussed among the Bernie delegation, and I don't know exactly how the discussion went in Washington or California, but I know that we discussed in the Oregon Bernie delegates that we were not for the platform. And one of the big reasons we were not for the platform was, or is, its exclusion of Medicare for all, which is something that we support. So, my votes were against the platform, for the platform that they've proposed, and for the resolution.
So if the vote happened to go against the platform, they have to start fresh? Or
That's a darn good question, Alan. I don't know.
I expect it to happen, but if it did.
Yeah, I don't expect it to happen either. I would like it to, because I think, when you poll Democrats and you poll regular citizens, a public healthcare system and ideally Medicare for all is something that they're overwhelmingly in favor of. So it's to me, it weakens the party actually when we exclude something like Medicare for all. But I don't know what they do if the platform doesn't pass, because as you look at the timeline, the convention is just going to be next week. It's right around the corner. So I don't know how you would put together a platform so quickly to appease everyone. That's a good question. What happens?
You find weasel language where you say Medicare for all, but it doesn't mean the same thing anymore.
Probably.
They don't pay a lot of attention to the platform anyway, let's be honest.
Oh, I agree. There's a lot of symbolism in there, but on the positive side, it does communicate to people, I think, that the Democratic Party is your voice is still going to be represented there. So I've seen articles in Politico that have covered this, where they talk about Bernie delegates rejecting the platform. So the cat's out of the bag. People know the way that Bernie delegates are, by and large, voting. Now, we each get to vote independently. We all have our independent ballots, but I know that's what the Oregon, California, and Washington Bernie delegates have decided, is that we're not going to accept the platform as it is. And one of those primary reasons is the exclusion of Medicare for all.
So this would be in an ordinary convention where people were physically present. This would be something where the Biden people would be out doing a little persuading and arm twisting of various kinds to make sure that people were voting the correct way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, we're going to miss all that arm twisting and pillow talk about what's to come. So that's unfortunate, because I think that's really part of the political experience. But yeah, it's symbolic. I assume that the platform will probably pass. But I think that, when you can't get the real thing, symbolism is important. So that's where we're at with that.
Any other observations on this experience? That you said you weren't a delegate in 2016, so this is something new for you.
Yeah, it's 100% new to me, and it's too bad, because I like to travel, and I was very optimistic.
Fun of being at a convention is being with all those other people and schmoozing.
Yeah, being with all those other people, and I know there were relationships that were created in 2016 that are really strong. We both have a friend in James Barber, and he has friends all over the country from 2016, and being a Bernie delegate down there in Philadelphia, where things were really contentious, and the Bernie delegates were trying their best to represent, that more progressive side of the Democratic Party. And, he has friends from probably almost every state in the union, other Bernie fans. So you miss out on that. And that stinks, but we'll see what's to come next week. I know that we'll be able to be joining. I think they'll be doing it via Zoom. I believe that's the platform that we'll be using, and maybe there'll be side chats. I know that we have some other groups that are national for Bernie Sanders, and we'll get together on a Slack and talk, and I hope that continues. I think it's important to build friendships with people that are with the same ideology in other states and regions.
Yeah, that would be a big thing that you missed, plus possibly meeting some of the big names in the party. Huh? They come by to thank you for your service and all that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm 46 years old, so if you hang around politics or interested in that,
you're not going to be starstruck.
Yeah, not as much. Maybe, but Nina Turner would strike me, or some people like that. AOC, who doesn't want to run into her, or Bernie, the man himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would miss those opportunities. But I was more looking forward to getting in Milwaukee, and I've never been to Milwaukee. And I heard they have a great Bloody Mary that they put a sausage in, so I want to try one of those. And
yeah, doesn't everybody want to visit Milwaukee at least once in their life?
Yeah.
Or maybe only once in their life.
Well, I don't know. I know they brew a lot of beer there. So there were a lot of, I was psyched when I was voted as a delegate, and it wasn't just to represent Bernie and what we believe to be those progressive ideas and policies. But also, yeah, I don't mind traveling, and I was psyched to go to Milwaukee. So, but the reality is that it wouldn't be safe. So I'll just have to make my own Milwaukee Bloody Mary here, and connect with
Get
these
in the
people.
spirit a little bit. Well,
Exactly.
we'll be watching the speeches at least. I don't know if we'll be able to see much of anything else going on. Of course, they haven't been broadcasting that in a while. Back in the old days, they used to have 24-hour coverage and show you a lot of what was going on the floor and in the halls. Anyway, so thanks a lot for joining us and letting us know what's going on there, at least from one man's perspective.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alan. It's great catching up with you and talking politics. And if anyone else out there wants to ask me questions, you can just email me, jimcupples@gmail.com, and I'm happy to respond to anything. Did
you want to plug again that website that you have about running for office?
Yeah, for anyone out there that's interested in running themselves, years ago I had co-founded a site called runforoffice.org. You enter your address, see the next election date, filing window, and all of that on how to get on the ballot. And it's got every school board in the country, every county position, state delegates. It's got around 150,000 different positions. So I created that so that we could have more competitive races, and that it would lower the barrier of people entering politics. So please check that out and throw your hat in the ring if you have got something new to say and want to run for office.
So now you've actually run for an office yourself, which is a delegate to the National Convention, and you won your first race.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye bye.